it's Alicia. So we are ready for lesson 2. All right, lesson 2, week 2. Want to give you a little bit of an overview, just so maybe you feel a little bit more comfortable with the lesson. So again, here's the lesson overview. It's just going to go over the objectives and the assignments for the course. The assignments or the lesson rather. For the assignments for this lesson, you have a classroom management discussion, a providing effective feedback assignment, and then, as I mentioned in the first lesson, you have the standard lesson 2 reflection. Let's take a quick look at the classroom management area. Classroom management is a big question that not just GAs, but teachers have in general. How do you manage your classroom? What do you do when a student, fill in the blank, whatever the student does, whether they come in late, whether they use their cell phone and it's in the syllabus that they can't use their cell phone, whether they leave early, all the things. But how do you just manage your classroom? One of the ways that you can get off on the right foot or in a good way is to have an effective class, first class, like we talked about during the last lesson. But then the classroom management is more of the day-to-day, the consistency part of being a teacher. So in this topic, there are some questions to think about. So as you kind of read through this information and you're going to watch a video or two, think about, what did the particular teacher do about the behavior, if anything? Also think about your past. Maybe you've been in a classroom where a teacher handled some kind of student behavior really well, and you're thinking, ooh, I like how they did that, I'm going to do that. Or, ooh, I didn't like how they did that, I'm never going to do it that way. One of the things about classroom management is you have to find what works for you. As you watch the video, it's the second video, a video interview with 3 faculty members, something I want you to remember, and I think that it's even mentioned in the video, is that not every classroom management technique is something that you will feel comfortable with. And that's okay. You simply have to find the technique and the strategy that works best for you. If you are not comfortable, if a student walks in late and you're not comfortable saying, hey, student, I can't believe you came in late, don't you ever do that again, then don't do it that way. But maybe that works for some people and it doesn't work for others. So keep that in mind, that you just have to find something that works for you. There are going to be times where you're not going to do it right. You're not going to do it well, and that's okay. Use that as a learning experience. When that happens, seriously think about it after class. Why didn't it go well? How could I have done that differently? And you might even consider apologizing to the class at the next class session, because that might leave a bad taste in their mouth. Maybe you really handled something wrong and you think, man, I shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have handled it that way. So go back into the next class and say, okay, before we get started in today's topic, I want to talk about what happened during the last class period. This situation happened, this is how I replied and responded, and I am really sorry for how I did that. I thought about it later and I could have handled it a lot differently. I hope that, I know I've learned from this situation, and I hope that I can do better in the future. I hope that we can go forward from here. You don't have to drag it out. You don't have to make this long, big speech, but sometimes just acknowledging it helps you, and it also helps the student feel better. After all, I always like it when adults apologize to me, when someone says, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't do that well, I didn't do that right. So think about that. For this particular topic, there are 2 videos I want you to watch. One is 10 minutes long. The second one is 30 minutes long. It's a nice video. You could always watch it as you're working out or driving or walking or something like that. But it really does have a lot of different strategies that these different faculty use. There are also some strategies for low-level, mid-level, and high-level interruptions. Those interruptions will be described in this first video called How to Create a Civil Learning Environment. Also, there are reflections, so thinking about your behavior, because there are things that you do in the classroom that will impact how the students act in class. If you come in late a lot, if you come in maybe a minute to the class begins, your students might come in late. That's something that you're telling your students, that's communicating to your students, and so you're allowing that to happen. If you allow a couple of folks to use their cell phone and you don't correct them, that's going to start to be a problem. It's a lot easier if you are very strict the first weeks of class, and as the class goes on, you become less strict than it is to be less strict in the beginning and try to get strict toward the end of the class. That does not work. So think about being very strict, very follow the syllabus, write down the rule, write down to the letter as you're starting the session. So after you read the information and watch the videos, there's a discussion related to classroom management. I'm not huge on discussions in online classes. The challenge is we do learn from each other. And it is helpful to read what other people are thinking about, how they're thinking, what they're going to do, and kind of learn from them, get their thoughts and get their opinions. So they are valuable. This is why I am providing 2 different options for you to participate in discussions. You can type your response again, or if you would rather, you can use the flip. When you do that, do continue with your Microsoft account, and that make sure it's your WKU account. And then that will get you, and you can record a video, because sometimes it's just easier to talk than it is to type, and that is fine. After looking at classroom management, you're going to look at providing effective feedback to students. In other words, communicating to students related to their assignments, how they did well, what they can do to improve, what they didn't do well, all of that. And there are good strategies for doing that. So I do want you to watch the video about providing effective feedback. It's a video that I created. Then there are 2 articles for providing effective feedback. There's the Almond Joy feedback strategy, which I think is just fun. Then there's an article about 10 tips for more effective feedback, and then avoiding some common feedback mistakes. So you'll find out what works for you, and that's fine, but just effective feedback is important. The assignment related to providing effective feedback is simply a 1-question, Blackboard calls it a test, but it's a 1-question assignment. You can type your submission, you can type your answers in the box, or again, you can upload a Word document. That is completely up to you. But whichever way you decide, answer the questions provided, describe what makes effective feedback to students, describe some strategies that you're going to use based on what was in the course, and then pretend that a student made a small mistake on an assignment that they turned in. And using what you learned in the lesson, create some effective feedback for that student. So maybe they turned in a paper, a small 1-page essay, and they didn't answer one of the questions, or one of the questions fully enough. So you're going to have to use your imagination a little bit, maybe pull out a past assignment, but provide some feedback. Make sure it's effective and kind of hits those points of effective feedback, and tell me why you think it's effective feedback. So here's my feedback to the student I would give, and this is effective feedback because it meets these criteria. And then the lesson to reflection. Please let me know if you have any questions. I love teaching GATI, graduate assistants. I'm here for you to help make your first teaching experience as spectacular as it can.